So for this week's main topic, we've been Disney Vacation Club members. Gosh, it's going on more than 7 years now. Yeah, it's hard to believe because it seems like we didn't join that long ago, which, in relatively speaking, compared to a lot of people out there, it hasn't been that long.
Right.
But we know that there were some things that kept us from signing on to it earlier, and maybe it cost us a little money, and maybe we wished we had signed on a little bit earlier. So we thought this week's episode, maybe we'd share some of the things that we know, some of the information we have with you in case you're thinking about it, if you've ever considered it, to kind of give you a basis on what it's all about. You may know a couple things, but there may be some things you don't know. And Michelle always gets the good stuff out there for sure. Right, Michelle?
Oh, you're so kind. Really want to cover things that, like you said, things that we found out, first of all, when we did meet with a DVC rep, but also having used it, what are some of the things that we've learned that may be able to help somebody if they're trying to decide. We're in no way trying to advocate for people to join DVC or not. It doesn't impact
We get
us.
no benefit out of that.
Either way. But I think hopefully we're going to provide you some information that maybe if we had known earlier, we could have made a different decision earlier.
Right. And Disney Vacation Club was right for us. It's not right for everybody. And we'll discuss that as we go along as to why it may be right for you, or maybe it's not right for you, depending on your vacation preferences. But we'll get to that in a little bit. And Michelle has put together a little PowerPoint presentation to go along with this. And this is going to be a video episode on YouTube, theoretically, assuming everything records okay. This is going to be a video episode on YouTube. So once you've downloaded this podcast and listened to it, please go over to our YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and go ahead and check out this episode as well. So you can see the wonderful, nice little cute slides that Michelle has put up to kind of help us through some of this information we're going through. So let's go ahead and switch over to that now, and we can start talking about this. So go ahead, Michelle, lead us into our conversation on everything you need to know about Disney Vacation Club.
Well, first of all, for those of you who are listening on audio, the slides are not necessarily the end-all be-all to the presentation. They're more prompts for us to know what to talk about and kind of have some kind of order or sequence to things. And I actually did a more like if I was presenting at work, so that they're very surfer and oceany, just calming, vacationy.
Very soothing. It's a very soothing PowerPoint presentation.
Right. So the question that we came up with to kind of build around this topic is DVC right for you? And let's kind of explore why it may or may not. And so what I thought we'd do is just kind of talk about how it works. What are some of the benefits of DVC? Kind of a general overview of the cost, one that we call bumps, or kind of like the cons. We figured we're giving you the pros. Let's talk about a little bit of the cons to consider, and then share personally how do we use DVC and why it's right for us, and certainly your plans if you decide to have DVC, or if you have DVC, you may use it totally different. And flexibility is one of the things that you'll hear us talking about a lot.
Very good. So let's go ahead and get to it. Michelle, lead us through this wonderful topic that we love very much.
Right. So how does it work? It's not your regular timeshare like you would think of, okay, every year you get a 2-week slot at a particular resort, and that's your vacation for the year.
It is a timeshare. It's just a different timeshare.
Right. So the way it works is really, it's all about the points. And so what you're doing, and I know it's going to be kind of challenging to explain this in a short episode like this, but I think this is what kind of gave us the information we needed to know how it works and what we were paying for and how to go about it. So you're purchasing points, an X number of points, and you're going to use those points year after year. So let's say a random number, you buy 200 points. You're going to use those every year. You get that that allotment back to you to use. And how are those consumed? Well, it's really based on the resort. So they have some resorts, just like Disney has, value, moderate, and deluxe. We have with the DVC, you have some resorts that are maybe have more amenities or accommodation things to provide them. So if you're talking Grand Floridian Villa, versus something else like the Fort Wilderness that may not have the same amount of amenities to it. The room size, and we're going to go over that, the types of rooms. What kind of view do you have? Do you have a preferred view or standard view? And obviously, time of year. So, if you consider all of those things, that determines how many points you're using. So, for example, if you're going to use use a room at a monorail resort during peak travel times, like the holidays, well, yeah, you're going to need more points for those reservations. If you're going to use a smaller room like a studio in a standard view, well, you're going to use less points for that. So in all, it gives you really unlimited variation in how you utilize your points. And you don't have to limit them to one time a year. You can use them anytime throughout the year, and you can change. So if let's say one time you're staying, you're going to have a studio, and another time maybe you want a one bedroom. You don't have to stick to one type of room.
Or one resort. You can, even though you will choose a home resort to buy into Disney Vacation Club, that doesn't mean that you can only stay at that resort. You can use them at any of the Disney Vacation Club resorts, and even some of the other resorts that are non-Disney Vacation Club. We'll get into that, I'm sure, as well. Also know, and I don't know if you're going to discuss this already, that yes, you get an allotment of points every single year that you're in this, but that doesn't mean you need to either use them up, or if you use them up, you're done with it. You can put some of those points away towards the next year if you don't use them, or if you need a few more in a year, you can borrow from years in the future as well. So important things to know that we didn't know going in.
100%. Right. Yeah. We thought one of the things we thought is that each year you're having to buy the points again and again. It's a one-time purchase of those points. But there are, additional annual costs, and we're going to, talk about that a little bit as well. But the main thing we want to get through here is that it is a system that allows you a ton of flexibility. And I think that's what was attractive to us, that you don't have to be limited to any particular resort, room size, time of year, or anything like that. You can decide how to use those points. And I know when we first had it, I was obsessed with making sure we were using our points the most cost efficient way and getting the most out of it. And over time, I've realized that isn't necessarily the key. And it's what do you want to enjoy, and that's what the benefit of this program allows you.
Yeah, completely. And that's how we began to use it. And we have changed since when we first bought in. We lived in California,
right?
So we use them in different ways to go to. We bought in thinking we were going to take multiple lengthy trips, 7-day trips, 5, 7, maybe even longer day trips out to Walt Disney World and use them that way. And now that we're here in Florida, we use it slightly differently, but we'll get to that a little bit later.
Right. All right. So let's move on here. So one of the things I mentioned, and I think it's good to know, is the different types of rooms that you have access to reserving. So the first kind is the studios, and that's what you would typically see in terms of size of a regular hotel resort. But the difference here is you do typically get like a sitting area in that room. So you'd have a couch that would be either a Murphy bed or a sleeper couch that you would have to allow for additional, room to sleep, but during the daytime, give you a place to sit, watch TV, or just hang out in the room.
Which I think is becoming more common with many of the regular resort rooms now as well. They're kind of have adopted that. DVC was the first ones to kind of do it, and then they're moving into the regular rooms as well. But I think the other benefit of those studios is the kind of small kitchenette that you kind of get with it. So you can do things like, prepare little breakfasts or snacks or whatever it might be to kind of help cut on some of your food costs while you're visiting your Disney stays. Now, you don't have to use it, but it is a benefit if you decide you want to.
Right. So they have a microwave, a mini refrigerator. They do have like a little freezer compartment, but sometimes, we've seen variations in how well those work to really keep things frozen versus just maybe better chilled. They also have a toaster, but it's just also the space that they have that you have, and you have a sink there, that you can have some food available in there. I mean, we used to cook dinners with the microwave
Yeah.
and things like that at times too. Or breakfast is definitely an easygoing one. They obviously have a coffee pot, or tea there. So, and then they have, if it's a studio, they do have flatware. Right now, most of the resorts are limited to having plastic flatware, but they're individually wrapped in a drawer, so it does feel a little homey in that regards. Um, but anyways, you have that kind of convenience. Now, the next types of rooms they have are 1 and 2 bedrooms, and these have similar rooms like the hotel, but then you have another area that has a full kitchen that will have full appliances and ability and dishes, real dishes and silverware, dishwasher, available to you, as well as a sitting area.
And a dining room table.
Right, and a full dining room table, whereas the studios might have just a little tiny table, enough for 2 to 4 people at best. But the 1 and 2 bedrooms have that much more. All except the Fort Wilderness will also have a washer and dryer in the one.
Which can be a benefit, especially for a longer stay. It allows you to pack a little, especially when airlines are charging for checked bags. A lot of times, if you can bring clothes in a carry-on and wash them throughout your trip, it is beneficial to you. And let's just face it, here in Florida, it gets hot, it'll rain on you, it'll do both. You may just need to either dry your clothes or wash them just because you've been out in it during the day.
Right, exactly. Now, in terms of points, obviously, as I mentioned before, and before I get into the other types of accommodation, the studios take a certain amount. The 1 and 2 obviously consume more of your points. Now, the interesting thing is the jump from a studio to a 1-bedroom is a fairly significant. It's almost double most of the time. But the jump from a 1-bedroom to 2-bedroom is usually much smaller. So, but you would see that. But it's just, again, allowing you flexibility. If you have more people in your party that you want to stay, it gives you that ability to do that.
Or if you just need a little extra space. Some of us just need a little extra space. Hey, we love our families. Sometimes an extra room is, after a long day in the park, is not necessarily a bad thing. We'll just say that right now.
Right. Good point. Now, they also have what I call ultra accommodations, and they're not all the same at each resort, but they do have 3 bedrooms. Now, the 3 bedrooms, they are much more elevated than a 2-bedroom. It's not just an additional bedroom. Usually then it's like a mini apartment. In some of the resorts, it's actually 2 levels. You'll have an upstairs and a downstairs, and you'll have additional living spaces. Like there's one that has a pool table in it, and it just has a lot more area. If you have a really big party, or you're hosting a party, something like that might be really advantageous for you. They have over at the Poly, they have bungalows. So these are little, again, mini apartments.
The overwater
on the
bungalows
water
that you see as you're passing by the Polynesian, just outside the front of the Polynesian.
Right.
Those are the bungalows. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they're a little bit nicer than just going in, because it's your own little room that you have, or a little house that you have, that it's not just rooms next to other guests in rooms. Similarly, the Copper Creek cabins, those are the ones you see along the waterfront over at Wilderness Lodge, that have, again, their own little house And we've talked about that in our stay there. And now with the new tower at the Polynesian, they included penthouses that are exclusive on the top floor of the new tower and have again a lot more space than just a 2-bedroom resort.
By the way, just in case you don't know, the bungalows at the Polynesian and the Copper Creek cabins at the Wilderness Lodge are 2-bedroom.
Right.
Essentially, you can sleep many more. There's plenty of places to sleep in the living room area. I mean, it's a full. They're basically full little houses. But know that going in, as far as actual bedrooms, 2 official bedrooms in both of those.
Right, right. So let's delve into this a little bit more in terms of what does this mean? And so we're now displaying a slide. It's going to be hard to see, but it kind of gives a comparison of Bay Lake Tower at the Contemporary Resort compared to Disney Old Key West Resort.
The original Disney Vacation Club
original
Resort,
Disney
Old Key
Vacation,
West. Yes.
right? So obviously, Bay Lake Tower being at the Contemporary, it is a monorail resort there, and it gives you the access to everything at the Contemporary, as well as having their own features at the Bay Lake Tower. And so it's going to consume a lot more points. And I've also included here on the slide, and it's very tiny for me. So
make it a little larger.
thank
so
you.
can see it.
A comparison of, say, for example, the September dates, which is the slowest time of year, versus the spring break and holiday season, Christmas season. There, the points jump up significantly. But you can kind of compare the view also determines it. Sunday through Thursday nights use less points than the Friday, Saturday nights.
It's just like you would think for any resort stay. I mean, you usually pay more for a Friday or Saturday night staying anywhere, any hotel,
Right.
any resort. You're probably paying a little more Friday, Saturday night. Same thing is with your point usage at any of these Disney Vacation Club resorts. And of course, obviously, high popular times, the holidays, spring break, certain portions of the year, those will also be higher points as well. Whereas where they see kind of things slow down a little bit, you might be able to get some significant value at it, and you might be able to stay at some place that you normally wouldn't if you decide to allot your points in the right way.
Exactly. So again, using just this example, if you look at the 3-bedroom rooms, and again, you're probably not good if you're getting DVC, you're probably not looking to do that, but just to give an example here, the 3-bedroom grand villa over at Bay Lake Tower is going to take for Lakeview 82 points. Now over at Disney's Old Key West, they don't have a variation in views, but it's almost half the points, 46 points. And so as you can see, when you're using your points, you can calculate what do I need it at. Now, when you look at the studios, they're a little bit more comparable. Again, Old Key West is using less points, but you can compare 9 points usage each night at Old Key West versus 13 to 18 points, depending on the view, at the Contemporary or the Bay Lake Tower. So, as you can see, because they have so many types of rooms and the point system and the time of year, you really, again, have that flexibility to choose. Now, again, if you're one that travels during the high peak times of the year, you would need to realize that you're going to use more points typically. But that's the same thing as if you were buying a hotel, paying for a hotel, you're going to pay more over those peak seasons.
Exactly. And obviously, these are a couple extremes here. There are higher point total resorts than Bay Lake Tower that you'll find out there. Old Key West is about the lowest you'll find. Saratoga Springs is pretty much on par with it as well. But there are some that are kind of in between too. So you can kind of shift and find what works for you and how many points you have to allot based on your vacation and where you like to stay. Maybe you want to stay on a monorail resort. Maybe you don't mind saying something like we compare Old Key West and Saratoga Springs, kind of more of a moderate. Maybe you like moderates. that's fine. You can use your points, probably a little more value there if you like those spots.
Right. So again, going back to the concept of, and use an example of buying, if you would purchase 200 points, this is how you would start to calculate how would you utilize that. If you're going to be traveling more often and using one bedroom, then you realize you have to consider that when you're determining point system.
Mhm.
Now, you don't have to do that. Like when we purchased, we did not necessarily say, oh, okay, we'll travel this many times a year and we do one bedroom here, studios there, whatever. There are things that we took into consideration. Like what they do when you're meeting with them, and what's provided here is, if you were to look at a week if you were to say, okay, I want to buy 1 or 2 weeks worth of travel, you could use this in here, and it kind of gives you that summary in there as well. So you would see that to be able to say, okay, this is about how many points I think if I'm going to go to uh, Walt Disney World or Disneyland for a week. What would I kind of need?
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of just kind of a basis of what you'd be looking for. Kind of gives you an idea. You can go to DisneyVacationClub.com. They have the charts there if you go do a search for it, and you can kind of find out an idea of what it takes point wise to kind of do this all. And by the way, the hosts that you have at Disney Vacation Club, they'll break it all down for you as well if you decide to go to that next step later on.
Right. But hopefully this kind of gives you an idea when you hear about points, what does that mean? It's just a system of being able to allocate an amount of annual something or other, so you can figure out what you would need to use.
And by the way, you can buy the Disney Vacation Club points straight from Disney Vacation Club, which is what we would actually suggest, at least to start off with, because there are things that come along with that once you have a certain amount of points, you have all the ability to do the different perks that come along with being a Disney Vacation Club member. You can purchase them from other sources. People are reselling some of their points out there. You can purchase them that way. It's become a little more difficult recently because Disney has the right of first refusal on a lot of these. And so it's become a little bit more difficult to find the right price for those. But you can just know that if you do purchase the majority of your points or all your points from those, it's going to exclude you from a couple of the extras that we may talk about here as we go through the bonus points of being a Disney Vacation Club member.
Right. And so, as we had said, when you buy from Disney your points, you have that complete flexibility of using your points at any of the resorts. You don't have to stick to your home resort. If you buy through a third party, Disney has put restrictions on that you may only get to reserve at certain, whatever that home resort that you purchase from included.
And by the way, Disney recently has started buying up some of those contracts and then putting them out there. So you can sometimes find some contracts that have been not existing for a while that you can purchase at a, like you'll go in there, and the ones they'll have on sale officially now are some of their newer resorts. Obviously, the new Island Tower, the Polynesian's on sale. I think they still have the Riviera on sale. Alani's on sale. Some of those are on sale now.
Fort Wilderness.
Copper Creek at Fort Wilderness. Excuse me, Fort Wilderness. Wilderness Lodge. Fort Wilderness. That is on sale now. But you might be able to find something for Old Key West or Saratoga Springs or something along those lines that the price you pay per point, it may be a little bit lower, but I'm sure we'll discuss that here coming up as we go along.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and move on to the next thing.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the perks and the benefits of having DVC. As we had already mentioned, flexibility, being able to decide year after year, how do you want to utilize your points to have time at the parks or at the resorts. Now, over on the East Coast here, they do have extended evening hours in the parks. It's usually 2 nights a week, and they alternate between. It's typically been Magic Kingdom and Epcot. I know at times that they've changed that around, but that is a nice free perk that you get to go into the parks after the on those designated days that the park is closed and have access to the attractions. Most of the attractions there. And it obviously it's kind of like being able to go to a ticketed event, but you didn't pay anything more because all the villas, all the vacation club resorts fall under that benefit.
Yeah, you need to be staying at one of the resorts. You can't just be a Disney Vacation Club
Right.
member to get in there. But if you're staying at all the villas, any of the Disney Vacation Club resorts, if you're staying there on those nights when they have those extended hours, you get it, and they're gold. We've done it.
Yes.
It's gold. You want to, if you want to get on a lot of attractions, you won't necessarily get on through the day. You will. Probably at night. It was fantastic. Take advantage of it.
Right. And during some certain seasons, like especially in the summer, being able to go in the evening, it's a little bit cooler and you don't have the sun beating on you as well. But for the last couple of years, they've been doing these extended hours week after week, having it something available at each week at least 2 nights. So that's been really, really great. You do get discounts. So you get discounts on some food purchases. Not it doesn't include alcohol, but at some places that even the annual pass holders discount isn't offered. You do get vacation club discounts, as well as discounts through other entities that Disney has, come up with agreements. So some of the stores, whether in Disney Springs or downtown Disney, different things come up during the year that you'll get added discounts to that.
And of course, the actual Disney shops themselves. If you're
Right.
going, you also get a DVC discount in a lot of those as well for things you purchase.
Exactly. And obviously, another nice perk is that they do have DVC lounges at some of the parks. Over at Disneyland, they have one. At Epcot, they do have one right now. It's still under refurbishment, and we also heard earlier this year that they're going to be having a new one next year at Magic Kingdom.
Yeah. So, and those are great too. I mean, if you like a little break during the day to just sit, cool down, maybe charge up your phone, get a little something to drink, maybe a little snack. They're perfect for that.
Right.
We use them regularly.
Exactly.
The Epcot one, we're there. Like if we're on a day at Epcot, there's a fair chance we're going to be spending a little bit of time in that lounge because we take advantage of that. We enjoy it. It's a nice way, especially during the heat, to cool off, or if you need to dodge the rain for a little bit. If you just want to sit down, or like I said, they have places to charge your phone, any of that.
Right.
It's really good.
Yes. Then they also do have some free hosted special events. Mainly they have the Moonlight Magic, which is an evening, again, after the park closes, that you get to go in, and they do have some of the restaurants open. They typically give you vouchers to get some snacks that you can have access to as well, and all the ice cream bars that you could possibly want in one evening.
It's a late night ticketed event. Just think of Disney, Walt Disney World after hours, an after hours event.
Right.
Obviously you think of things like Not So Scary or Very Merry or any of those. It's like that without maybe the theming of that. It's themed around Disney Vacation Club, obviously. But yeah, you get in there and you have lesser weight on the attractions, the free snacks, the ice cream, the free other, like Michelle mentioned, the vouchers. It's great, and it's all included with the price of your membership. And I will say it's a limited event, so just because you're a Disney Vacation Club member doesn't guarantee you'll get into that event. The best way to do it is have a stay booked for one of those nights that you're going to do it, because then you're likely to be able to get a entry pass into those. And then after those go, they do open it up for other Disney Vacation Club members that are not staying on property necessarily those nights. However, those will go pretty quickly, and so there's no guarantee that you'll get into those. But if you see one that you want, the studios, Animal Kingdom, Typhoon Lagoon, they do a night at Typhoon Lagoon. Any of those, book your stay there, and then you can get those those passes pretty easily in that case.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is really just a fun, celebrated evening. There's music playing. They have DJs and projections, and it's just like a very, very cool event. And sometimes they have other events too, but those are the main ones. They have one at every park. At Walt Disney World. At Disneyland, I think they tend to alternate between California Adventure Park or Disneyland each year, but they'll have one each year there. And sometimes they have multiple ones, like they might have during different times of the year, one at Animal Kingdom or Epcot. What's been great about the Epcot ones a lot is when they time it to be during a festival, because then your vouchers get you festival food as well.
So. Exactly. By the way, going back to the lounges, you left one lounge out.
I know, I just realized that.
Is the Top of the World Lounge on top of Bay Lake Tower. Which is an amazing lounge. It's a wonderful place to get some small plates, some great cocktails, both alcoholic, non-alcoholic. It is good for the entire family. Don't think about it as just an adult lounge. Plus the advantage of getting great views of Magic Kingdom and yes, fireworks at night. And it's themed to villains now. It's very subtle villains layer theming, but it is fun and it's a great place, and it's one of our favorite places to go to, and you can only go there if you're not only a Disney Vacation Club member but also staying on property at the same time.
Right. And for that one, you don't have to be staying at a Disney Vacation Club resort. Now the difference with that one is things are not free in that one. You do have to pay, and it's a real lounge if you think about having a bar there. The other ones, it's completely free. They have the self-serve, make your own blend of soft drinks.
Yeah, those Coca-Cola machines that the multi, I forget there's a name for them, but you can pick like so many different types of Coke
and a lot of times,
and all sorts of different sodas and such.
Right. And then they have usually snacks, like some types of chips or whatever. And
the one at Disneyland has that amazing coffee machine where you can make some nice coffees there. I mean, you can make coffee in the one at Epcot. I'm hoping they upgrade when they reopen it to that coffee machine they have at Disneyland, because that's so much fun to get some really nice coffees there. I mean, it's machine coffee, so it's not like you're getting it out of Joffrey's or Starbucks or anything, but it's still it's pretty nice.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that they upgrade just from the Keurig that they have at the Epcot one to one of those machines there as well. We'll see. Or at the Magic Kingdom one when they open that one up.
Right. And then the other benefit or perk that they have are DVC cruises. They usually have one a year, and it's not free. You can either pay or use your points for it, but it is specifically designed, and the attention to the type of entertainment and free gifts that you get are all based on for DVC members.
Yeah, we're going to go on our first one in 2025, August of 2025. We're booked. One thing about this cruise is you have to pay in full when you book it, because they don't want people messing around taking up cabin rooms and then canceling last minute. You book in full. But we've heard this, and we'll tell you for ourselves once we get done with this thing, that some people will say, bring an extra suitcase with you just because of all the stuff that you get for going on one of these cruises.
Right.
So we'll find out about that for sure and verify it on a later episode. But also they do have other DVC cruises that are like, member exclusive things that aren't like exactly like this, where you get all the gifts, where there's amazing speakers necessarily there. Like that's one of the things with these DVC member cruises, but they're exclusive to DVC members. Like they have one coming up here for the Treasure. There people are going to get, DVC members are going to get a very early chance to sail aboard the Treasure. And then they're about to book one for the Destiny as well when that comes on board next year as well. So those are also ability to use your points or purchased in just because you happen to be a DVC member.
Right, exactly. One of the things when we were talking about the use of points, now that we're talking cruises, is yes, you can use your points also for cruises. There's a point chart for that. They do, we'll admit, they consume a lot of points.
Yeah.
And if you do take annual cruises, even do that versus going to the resorts, that may be a great way for you to use it. You buy your points once and you get to cruise year after year. So that is something that is also available, as well as the fact that you can use your points for other types of resorts, not just Disney resorts, but worldwide.
Right. Yeah, there are some ability to what they've partnered. Well, there's worldwide Disney actual. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name of it, but there are actually some Disney associated resorts that you can use your points on worldwide. But there's also another company that they kind of have contracted with that basically runs timeshares, and that essentially they look and see in the city that you're looking for, whatever it might be around the world. And if they have a timeshare available, you can use your DVC points kind of towards those timeshares around the world as well. So you're not just locked in necessarily to using those points only on Disney vacations. Obviously, that is where you're probably going to get the best value out of it, but there is some ability to extend those if one of your sticking points is, yes, but I don't want to only do Disney vacations with these points
Every year, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Very good. Now, honey, you did put out a request if anybody had questions for today's episode, and I think we did get a question.
Yeah, this came from Marianne. I mentioned this on the morning show I do every day on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, that we will be talking about this episode. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to send us one. And she did. She says, "Hi, I'm mostly curious if there are any particular benefits or perks to DVC ownership that you see or have experienced for families who have very special members like our kiddos as compared to booking and visiting resorts as an AP." I'm realizing that's a highly specific question as I type it, but I hope that's okay. It's absolutely okay. And what she's speaking about is Marianne has an autistic son. We obviously have a son who has Down syndrome and autism as well. So we kind of understand that. Michelle, what's your thoughts on that?
So my thoughts, there's a couple things. Is one of the main elements of Disney Vacation Club is its home, right? Because you're buying into, ownership. And you hear that as soon as you check in from the security gate person who's checking you in throughout your stay, you'll hear people say, welcome home, welcome home. And I think that's the benefit. One of the benefits, first of all, that we've really learned to appreciate is it does have a home feeling. It doesn't necessarily maybe feel as you would always think of a hotel. It feels like there's comfort there, especially for us. What we see with Scott is when we stay, it's a little bit easier on him when we stay at the one bedrooms, just another little space, for his time. If he wants to be watching something else on TV, there's that additional TV set in another room, etc. But the other thing is what they have in the community halls that they have at each of the vacation club resorts. And that is a space that during the day you can do some things that are, like free crafts that they'll have available. They have pin trading there. Outdoors, they have a lot of additional things that you wouldn't necessarily see at another resort. Like they might have bocce ball, or what do you call it? The giant Connect Fours out there as well. Different things outside that are fun little activities that you can enjoy, that give it a little bit different than just the, sometimes where the going to the parks can be very highly stimulating. This can be a little bit more special, but not as overt and high energy as you would think of going to the parks.
Yeah. Now, so the benefit for us, as we've mentioned, is, the fact that with Scott, we enjoy sometimes we enjoy going, but sometimes, especially for extended stays, maybe we don't want to be in a studio or a smaller resort room look, he only enjoys so many attractions. So we can only go for the parks for so long. He'll also wear out. And so we may spend a little more resort time with him. And so having a little bit more space during those resort times is beneficial to us. That's part of the reason why we bought into this. And, we will talk about that, I'm sure, a little bit more later as well. So the ability to get a little bit larger room, like a deluxe studio or a one bedroom, it really is nice for us for what is somewhat a reason. If you try and book a one bedroom with cash, it's going to cost you a lot of money. And I'm not saying DVC isn't a lot of money, it's a lot of money. But when you break it down by the point total you use to book a 1-bedroom, especially on some of these value times a year, versus what you would pay for that same 1-bedroom suite, etc., during that same time of year, it becomes of a value, and that's where it became of a value to us. Now, as far as other perks involved, we already talked about discounts. Yes, you get discounts on restaurants. You get discounts on doing stuff like going to the shops, whatever. If you're an annual pass holder, you get a lot of those same discounts. Not necessarily every single one. They don't mash up with everything, but they're pretty close in many regards on many things. So you also, and this, Marianne is from Florida, so I don't think this plays a part for her. But as a Disney Vacation Club member, you have the opportunity to buy an annual pass at the same rate as a Florida a resident member. So if you were from out of state and you wanted an annual pass, you get the same level as somebody who is a Florida resident. Now, again, Marianne, this probably doesn't play a part for you, but it does play a part for somebody from out of state. So those are kind of, I don't know, the key things for us. Michelle, you got something else?
Well, I was just going to emphasize the park lounges.
Yeah.
I think that's really a great location to go and just kind of detach without having to go all the way back to the resort during the day. They have TV playing some of the Mickey Mouse cartoon or animations going on there as well. And it's just, again, a way to have a space to just relax and not be out with all the crowds.
Yeah.
That's certainly very helpful and beneficial for him. Yeah. It definitely saves going all the way back to the resort if you just need half an hour or an hour just to again get away from the crowds.
Just take a break. Sometimes, especially those with special needs, sometimes you need a space.
Yes.
A space they're comfortable with to take a break. And it's good to have a space that they're comfortable with to do that.
Right.
Kind of just take a breath and, regroup and then get back out there. And again, the other things we talked about, the extended hours in the parks, the Moonlight Magic nights. Those are all great things as well. That are benefits of being a Disney Vacation Club member.
Yes. And we have seen it with Scott that he enjoys those things way better.
Yeah.
So anyways, hopefully that helped answer your
hopefully so.
question.
And again, anybody has any questions after this is done, hit us up. We're always happy to answer them if we can. We would always recommend that if you have real interest, going and actually talking to a DVC host, because they're not high pressure.
Right.
They'll discuss it all they'll sit down with you. They'll talk about what is, what the points are like, what the benefits are, and they are better even than, we have some knowledge. They know a lot more about it than us. And
right.
Again, they won't you can't leave the room until you buy. They're not like that at all. No. They'll give you time, even if they think you might buy, to think about it, work it out, figure it out as a family. And sometimes when you go visit them, you get a little special stuff on top of that. So just take that into account. So, but we've talked about a lot of the pros so far. Everything's not perfect with Disney Vacation Club, right, Michelle?
Right. Yeah. So there's some, we'll call them bumps in the road, so the cons that you could encounter as a DVC owner. And the first thing is that sometimes your desired room may not be available. Like if you want a particular resort and a particular view, you might struggle, and I don't want to get into all the details of, if you buy into a certain resort, you get advanced booking for that out further than if you're using your points for another room. But I think the main thing to understand here is that there are a lot of people with Vacation Club points. And sometimes if you're looking for something in particular, you might have a harder time finding it. If you're looking for Old Key West or Saratoga Springs because you want to conserve your points, you're probably not going to have as much trouble using those points. But if you're looking for, the Riviera, when there is a Run Disney race going on or something like that, you might find some struggles throughout the year, or for some last minute things. Different times of the year, it's harder to find those last minute rooms.
And then people have wondered about why they keep building Disney Vacation Club resorts. And that's because a lot of times that they're isn't the availability out there. And there are a lot of Disney Vacation Club members, and so you'll see it sometimes if you're looking that you can't find rooms for certain dates, especially near, closer to it. If it's a spur of the moment thing, it's something to take into the equation. It's just like anything else. If you're paying close attention to reservations, you can find things that pop open regularly, and you can also put wait lists on certain resorts if it's not available. If you're looking for, let's say, a studio at the Riviera, with a preferred view, but there's nothing available, you can put a wait list on there. You get a couple of them to put out there at any one time, and when somebody cancels, they'll go down that wait list. If there's somebody obviously that did it ahead of you, they'll go first. But wherever that wait list is, we have gotten many, many rooms through wait listing them. So know that, maybe it not be available, but it doesn't mean that you should give up on the fact that there might not be rooms there.
Right. And it also depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for 1 or 2 nights, you might have a better chance at your wait list being granted to you or becoming available. If you're looking for a week long or something like that, if it's not available when you're looking at it, you might have a hard time to get that. The other thing is, and I'm not going to get into details of how, but people have learned how to trick the system for early bookings to be able to get access to reservations. And so sometimes that depletes what's available if you're even looking for, here's my booking date my first available date for a particular resort down the road. And there are a lot of people who sometimes trick that system. Anyways,
by the way, I don't think we got into this for your resorts. If your home resort, you can book anything up to 11 months in advance. So anything that is like we have 4 different home resorts. We have the Polynesian, we have the Riviera, we have Copper Creek, and we have Disneyland. Yes, because we wanted to have a West Coast base. We reached not that long ago, bought into Disneyland, the new villas at Disneyland. We can book those 11 months in advance. So if you're a planner and want to book, you'll have an advantage over every other Disney Vacation Club member for those resorts you love. That's the only advantage of necessarily selecting a certain resort for a home resort. Right. Everybody else, it's 7 months in advance. You can book anywhere else that's not a home resort up to 7 months in advance. Just wanted to put that out there because I don't think we touched on that to this point. And it's something good to know if you're trying to select what properties you want to purchase and are into at some point.
Right. Now, the other thing that's, I guess, a disadvantage is you don't get to have discount offers that happen throughout the year for other resorts. So they never say, okay, this time of year, you don't need to use as many points. So just know that you don't get that type of a discount.
Yeah, the chart is the chart. When the chart comes out for the year, what the points are going to be for the year, that is what the points are going to be for the year. They don't break out the 30% discount for annual pass holders or et cetera. Yeah.
Right. So once you have that, there's no, you can't expect a discount to come along for using less points. And the other disadvantage is if you buy points and you decide you want to add on. So let's say, again, this is a random number, but let's say you initially bought 200 points and you decide you want more points because you're utilizing them more, or because a new resort opened up and you want to have that be your home resort, that you have an advantage of when you can start booking into those rooms. That will mean additional closing costs. It's not like, okay, I'm just going to add on, and so I just add a few more dollars for each of those points. You have to go through the whole closing process for that.
So if you add on 25 points, which we've done just to have an extra home resort, there are, maybe the total amount isn't that great, but there are those closing costs that you need to consider as well as the added on dues.
Right.
That's the one thing you have to put into this as well.
Yeah, we're going to talk about costs.
Yeah. Okay.
But so I mean, the main issues with the bumps in the road really relate to availability and costs.
Right.
So speaking of costs, why don't we take a look at what some of those are? So there's 2 types of costs. You have your initial one-time cost, and that's what we mentioned before, the points, your cost per point. So if you buy 100, 200, 150, 375, whatever it is, whatever that amount, you're paying one time for each of those points. Then you add on to that transaction closing costs. And if you do finance, you're going to have finance fees. Their financial costs are pretty comparable to what you would see with banks. One of the things you can do is you can pay these costs using your Disney Chase Visa, and be able then to also get some of the benefits of having those points for your Chase Visa.
Right. We, with all ours, have paid ours off because we didn't want the interest there on them. We wanted it to be more of a regular what we paid per point now. And we did go for financing for a short time, but we have paid completely ours off. So now our only costs are at this point the dues that we have to pay every single year. If we add on, then we will go back into either financing or, and also, of course, the closing costs that go on to that as well. So that's always a consideration for us, is where do we want to be points wise, and what does it add on to what we need to pay? Now, I will say we're blessed in that not everybody can pay off their loans ahead of time. And that's the good thing, is that you can do this and still just pay, monthly,
Right.
on monthly, annually on your financing fees. Yes, you're going to end up paying more in the long run if you don't pay it off quick in advance, but you also don't have to put out so much money to begin with.
Right. Exactly. Now you do have ongoing costs, your annual dues, which you can pay monthly as well, or you can just pay off all at once. Now, this is kind of like the cost. Think of an HOA. It's cost for maintenance of the resort, other costs associated with having that ability to stay at the resorts. Now, I'll tell you, it's not cheap, but it's also not like having to pay for hotel rooms every time either.
Right. What this is, it's a real estate transaction. It's a legitimate real estate transaction. You actually get a deed. You've purchased a portion of one of those rooms. They'll actually have it on your deed that you'll get.
Inches.
Yeah. You're paid for a portion of one of those rooms at whatever home resort you decide you're going to buy into. And by the way, I don't think we brought this up either. If you're buying into the first year of when something is on sale, you get that for 50 years. Okay.
Right.
Now, if you've bought in later into a contract, it can be shortened by a certain amount of time, and they'll explain that to you as well. And you can also, this may play a part into some people who are maybe later in life. You can also will these to your offspring, whomever you want. You can will these contracts to somebody else, and they can take it over. So if you're wondering about, taking care of your family and continuing Disney vacations for years to come after, God forbid, you pass,
right,
that is a portion of it as well. So it's something that, is brought up.
Right. Exactly. So I think this was one of our biggest questions before we bought into DVC. Was we thought we were buying the points year after year, and that's not the case. Now, yes, there's the annual dues, but it's nowhere near the cost of what you pay per point for the first time.
Exactly. So that's the key, knowing how much you're paying per point, how much your total is, how much you need. And by the way, you need a certain amount of points to get everything that the Disney Vacation Club has to offer. You need to have bought in at this point to a certain point value. I think it's 150 points.
Yeah, I think so. Something like that.
Yeah. To get everything, advantages of going to Moonlight Magic, going into, some of these other benefits of it. But then after that, you can do whatever you want with them. We bought into a couple large contracts to begin with, and then I bought a couple smaller just because we want a couple other home resorts, and we wanted to kind of boost up our point total a little bit so we can stay at a few more one bedrooms or whatever. But that's just things you need to know.
Right. Exactly. So that's how the cost of DVC is. And the annual dues, it's also a proportion of how many points you have. So it's not a set fee per person, or anything like that. It's however many points you have is
and
what's
based on your home resort as
in
well.
your home
They're
resort.
different from different home resorts.
Right. It's going to determine what your annual dues is. Mm-hmm. All right. So let's tell you a little bit about how we use our DVC. As we mentioned earlier on, it's kind of changed some from when we first purchased. As Tom mentioned, we bought in when we were out in the West Coast. And so we were using it mainly for Walt Disney World. So we would look for extended stays. Now that we're living in Florida, it's more episodes of stays that we do there. So a lot of times it's if there's a Disney sponsored event that we want to go to, we'll look for a room or rooms time frame around that. So like if we're going to be on a Run Disney race, we'll look to stay at a room at Disney Vacation Club room for that. Moonlight Magic, if there's one that in particular, we prefer the ones at Magic Kingdom and Epcot personally, but the other ones are great as well. That those times of year we'll look to book rooms there. If there's a D23 event that we're going to be attending, those types of things. So Disney sponsored events, we'll look for a room for
just
that.
a weekend getaway. We'll go for one night, sometimes 2 nights. We do have more extended stays. I don't think we do any more 7-night stays like we planned originally to do when we were going to be, if we're going to fly all the way across the country from California out to Florida, we were probably going to stay about 7 nights, and that was our plan originally. But since we're here, now it's changed a little bit more and we do things a little bit differently. But that doesn't mean that we have used them at Disneyland, since we now own a Disneyland in a different way as well. And now that's kind of more where we might stay a little bit longer when we go out to the West Coast. Yes, exactly.
Yes. The other times we use it, if there's friends or family in town, we might go for a day or two there. Or if we're celebrating something, we might go, as Tom mentioned, those impromptu quick getaways. Those are really fun to do at times as well, where we say, hey, let's just do a weekend out there. That's how we use it. And it works for us. I think it works even better for us this way because, again, we can really utilize that flexibility to say, okay, maybe we do want to go more during the off times of the year. Or if it's just Tom and I going, then we'll look more for a studio most of the time. If Scott's with us, then we're tending to look more towards a 1-bedroom.
Depending on if it's one night or multiple nights. If it's one night, a lot of times, even with him, a studio is just fine.
Sure.
But if it's a couple nights, maybe want a little more space. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Or just time of year too. Like what kind of things would we be doing? So we probably, if we're looking to stay at the Fort Wilderness cabins or the cabins at Fort Wilderness Resort, we might look more in the fall or the spring for that time frame versus the summer, because we want to do a little bit more outdoors in that resort. So, it gives us that flexibility to really delve into just these short trips, but have some additional components to it.
Exactly. Again, you mentioned it right off the get-go. Flexibility has been the benefit of this for us. And we'll talk about what made it right for us. I think, in the next slide. Right.
Yeah. So the next slide, we're just kind of wrapping up here is, one of the ways to approach this, for example, is to look at what your travel trends are. Do you cruise a lot? Do you go to Walt Disney World or Disneyland, most every year or a couple times a year? And then have sort of an idea of what your annual budget is for that. That's ideal. You don't have to do these things, but that will help you if you do decide to go the next step into this, to have an idea of what you are looking for in points. And then, as we've said, meet with the DVC team. They're at all the DVC resorts and some of the other resorts
in the parks, throughout the parks.
Yeah, throughout the parks. You can set an appointment. They will meet with you. It really is non-pressure to meet with them. They don't want to sell something that people are going to be unhappy about, or end up having to sell on the market later. During that time, you can tour DVC room. You can also tour DVC rooms without having to do a full presentation with the DVC team. Just tell them you'd like to first just take a look at the rooms. Or if you're a current DVC member and you want to look at what the resort rooms look like at you can ask for that as well. For example, we've toured the bungalows, even though we never stayed there. We toured the Copper Creek cabins.
And then did stay there.
And then decided we have to stay there. But also when we were at the new tower at Disneyland Resort, we got to look at some additional rooms. We were staying in a studio there, but we did get to tour a 1-bedroom
Mhm.
to see what the layout was, what it looked like, and really help determine, hey, what would we on our return visit, what would we want to do
Mhm.
in terms of staying there. So you can tour DVC rooms without having to go through a full presentation, but the presentations are very helpful. They do include a tour unless your time is very limited. Like we did not have time to actually tour the rooms when we met with our DVC rep the first time, and that was fine too. But it's fun to go tour the rooms as well. And as Tom mentioned, they'll usually give you a little something, a gift card or something like that for your time to even just to meet with them.
Yeah, it's worth just checking it out. You might get, a hat. There might be something very simple. It might be something more sophisticated. If you buy in, believe me, you're going to get a lot more than that. I'll tell you that right now. But even just for going and meeting with them, they're very appreciative of that. And sometimes you'll get a little something. I'm not going to promise it.
Right.
Sometimes you'll get a little something
Usually.
extra
And
on top of that.
Right. Different times of the year, they may offer even more. If you do provide them the name of somebody and that person chooses to buy into DVC membership, the person, your referral gets you something.
Yeah, there's a pay it forward program.
Pay it forward. Or if somebody joins and mentions somebody that they know that is a DVC member, that person also gets gifted something. So they do try to make it a little incentivized to either meet with them or get recommendations as well.
And by the way, we've talked about obviously the many resorts at Walt Disney World, the resorts at Disneyland, but don't forget there's also Aulani, which is a DVC resort.
Right.
There's also Hilton Head, which is a DVC resort. And one of our favorite new resorts, the Vero Beach Resort. So if you're looking more for a beach resort, a golf resort, a Hawaii resort stay, you can use your points at those as well.
Right.
And we have not done Aulani yet. It's on our plans to do in the near future list. We've not done Hilton Head yet, but we've discussed that as well. But we love Vero Beach. Vero Beach is underrated, although I think it's becoming more rated now because people have kind of found out how wonderful that resort is. But that's another way to use your points as well, specifically with Disney, not even talking about the other ways that we mentioned around the world.
Right, exactly. So
here's what I'll say about it is if your regular Walt Disney World stays are at the budget hotels or off property, DVC is probably not right for you. However, if you regularly try and stay at the moderates or have always wanted to stay or above or do stay at above, then you may want to consider this, especially if it's part of your regular vacationing routine. If it's once a year, even if it's once every 2 years, you may want to look into the possibility of it, at least ask about it, find out about it, because it might be right for you. Again, if you stay at a moderate now, for what you pay regularly to stay at a moderate, you're probably staying more at some of the deluxes. And, you can still, save that money and still stay at the moderate style DVC resorts. But if you want to stay at some of the deluxe villas, the Polynesian, the Grand Floridian, Bay Lake Towers, Wilderness Lodge, etc., the Riviera, you can do that for a lot of kind of around the same price, compiled over many, many years of what you'd be paying to stay at moderates regularly.
Right. So, in other words, what you would be paying each year, those dollars could be paying for or financing your points that will go on and on and on every year. So, that's the calculation kind of when we say look at your annual budget of what you're spending. If you're spending, X $1,000 a year, then that could be towards these points that will get you better rooms. And I think that was one of the things that I hadn't realized till you brought it up to me, honey, that we're staying in rooms that would normally cost $800, $900, $1,000, $1,200 or more for that one-time cost that we pay per point.
Don't get me wrong. It is a lot of money. Like you're going to go in there and you go, wow, we're paying this much money.
Yeah.
But you have to think about it as far as extending it over up to possibly 50 years of vacations, and how often you use it. Again, it is not right for everybody. And we will not tell you it is right for you. It was right for us. Go in, meet with somebody, talk to them about it, find out what it actually costs, sit down with your family and discuss it and do the math and figure out what's right for you.
Right. And you can meet with them without a commitment, because even if you decide later that you do want to do it, you have now the contact and you can do everything online. You don't have to go back and meet with them to get that implemented. So it's not like, oh, I meet with them and I have to decide yes or no. Absolutely not. You meet with them and then you get to have, if you want to, yes, they'll give you time there to talk with whoever you're with, your partner, your spouse, whatever, and then give an answer, and they'll give you that free time. Or you can say, hey, look, we need to talk about it. Who do we reach out to get this if we decide to go forward?
Exactly.
So,
I mean, they don't want you to rush into anything that's not right for you.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. They're going to tell you it's great and you're going to love it. And many people do. Most people do. There's a reason why there's so many Disney Vacation Club members.
Right.
But, again, it's not right for everybody. So make sure it's a lot of money. Make sure do the math, think about it. Don't jump to anything. Decide what's right for you. And then at the end, come up to the right conclusion. It was right for us. Maybe not for you.
Yeah. Just don't be afraid to explore it. Because again, they are not going to, insist at it, or like Tom said, hold you hostage till you say yes. It's not like that at all. They're willing to spend as much time to get you to understand it as you need, or you can go online and do a lot of research first at their site. You can sign on, and they have a lot of great explanations there as well. But just don't be afraid to look into it.
Yeah. And again, we're happy to answer any questions, at least to what our knowledge is of it as well. So if you want to hit us up on any of our social media channels, on the Gmail account, Hyperion Adventures Podcast at gmail.com. We are happy to answer from our experiences what we know. Anything specific, anything more general, we'll do that. But more importantly, if you're really, really considering it, go talk to an expert, because they will help you guide through it better. They're known as guides. They're actually titled guides.
Yeah.
Not guys. First we're like, who's your guy? No, it's who's your guide. We were confused. Who's your guy? No, it's who's your guide. They are actually guides to help you through your stay. And you will have somebody who's kind of assigned to you that will kind of help you through whenever you have any questions involved with your membership as well. And they're great.
Right.
They're wonderful, and they're very helpful.
Exactly.
So again, hit us up if you have any questions. But I think that's great. Michelle, great job setting up all those slides. That is a look at everything you need to know about Disney Vacation Club.